And this was a quote from the end of an article that was written by George Orwell, of all people, in December 27th, 1946. It's real short, but I think it's pertinent, which is, and he says, most people, if asked to prove that the earth is round, would not even bother to produce the rather weak arguments I have outlined above. They would start off by saying that everyone knows the earth to be round, and if pressed further, would become angry. In a way, Shaw is right. This is a credulous age, and the burden of knowledge, which we now have to carry, is partly responsible. So, wonderful. And remember, that was 1946. NASA wasn't even founded until 12 years later. So, great, great stuff. Quick recap, because again, this is a subject matter expert show. The people we have had so far. Again, people contact me from time to time and say, hey, look, I think I can add to the conversation here and add to the weight of the argument that the spinning globe model is just not going to cut it anymore. And so we have had, so far, really in the last, 6 months, not even 6 months, United States Navy missile instructor, a U.S. Air Force navigator, United States Marine Corps sniper instructor, a U.S. Navy submarine chief, a U.S. Army artillery radar operator, an Australian intelligence officer, a flight instructor out of Iowa, who happens also to be with us tonight, an industrial engineer specializing in valves and seals, a career surveyor of over 32 years, an international shipping expert, and a corporate travel agent, all relevant to the conversation, and I have enjoyed every one of these interviews. Tonight, we're going to add, appropriately enough, a air traffic controller, and I'd like to reread his letter that he sent me that pretty much got me to call him. He put his phone number in the email, and his name is Dale, and I'll introduce him in a second. But he writes in his email, I was an FAA certified sounds like it's a dating game thing, doesn't it? I was an FAA certified radar air traffic controller at NES Brunswick, which was a TRACON facility and airport. At night, I would get bored and set up my scope to max 350 miles. I turned it down to watch Boston traffic and warning areas, no-fly zones. Well, according to the globe equation, I saw airplanes at 81,000 feet. Problem? They squawk their airspeed and altitude, so the Earth can't curve like they say. Granted, I was using surveillance radar. It's not that off, and the squawk is extremely accurate. My radar and the aircraft transponders prove the Earth curve is wrong. Very wrong. So, with that, I'd like to introduce Dale. How are you doing, Dale?
Doing great. Thank you, Mark.
Fantastic. And before we learn a little bit more about you, as if that wasn't enough, I'd also like to bring in, because as soon as I read this, if I'm not mistaken, Jonathan Walter from Walter Aviation, one of our other recent subject matter airport experts, he contacted me. Is that true?
Yeah.
Fantastic. And he's with us. So, hey, Jonathan.
How's it going? Hey.
Good. So, yeah, you said, hey, I'd love to talk to this guy if he comes on. So, fantastic. Feel free. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to throw the microphone over to Dale here in a sec. We'll kind of find out a little bit more about him. And feel free, Jonathan, to just, chime in with any questions or reference, because you guys, you know way more about aircraft than I do.
I was super excited. I just want to be a fly on the wall and hear what Dale has to say. It's pretty interesting to have another aviation-related guy on board. So
cool. Well, that's great. Well, glad to have you. And with that, the first question I got to throw at you, Dale, because this comes up. Everybody wants to know how long have you been kind of looking or avoiding or dodging the flat Earth thing, and what got you into this now?
Well, I guess officially I ran across the subject matter about 8 months ago, but I had the pleasure of growing up in Southern California, and, I had a 180-degree view of the ocean, and it always perplexed me as the sun is setting, this gigantic hot spot went all the way down, where the sun is setting all the way to my feet, and I'm like, this just doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
And, when it rains and I see the clouds, I also went to Cal Poly Pomona as a structural engineer. Unfortunately, I didn't finish that degree. But I'm great at trigonometry and geometry and got an A in those subjects. And when I look at the sky and there's clouds and I'm seeing these sunbeams going off at different angles, I'm scratching my head going, how can that be possible?
Okay.
And so my whole life, I'm just observing things around I'm tradition to say planet,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I ran across, I don't know how it happened, but there was this animated video with the little kid on his, wearing a backpack, and they're discussing the angles and the trigonometry and and various subjects and the shadows as the sun sets.
Yeah.
The shadows are all wrong, and I'm sitting going, yeah, yeah, I know that, I know that. I've been wondering about this stuff my whole life. And I started doing some more digging and more digging, and then after a while, I'm very good at explaining things away, and in my opinion, I didn't see any hardcore proof. And there's a guy shining a laser beam like across the lake at the beach, and but the laser beam dispersed too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. The Jeranism test, the famous Jeranism test. Yep.
Yeah, and I got so sick and tired, and I just threw my hands up in the air and I abandoned the whole thing, and I didn't listen to it for, this about 8 months ago. I ran across it and threw my hands up there and forgot about it for the last 3 months.
Okay.
And I don't know how it happened. Again, I ran across the Jonathan interview, and he's
The
talking about
the United States Air Force retired
no
Navy.
the Jonathan Walter.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I
Yeah.
ran across the Jonathan Walter, and he's talking about how he can fly an aircraft for 100 miles, and he doesn't have to adjust anything on his aircraft, and he can just fly straight and level. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh my God, I was an air traffic controller. I have the hardcore proof. I mean, forget this laser beam test. I'm watching, airport surveillance radar at aircraft 350 miles away. I'm receiving a radar blimp. I can see their altimeter. I can see the airspeed. I can see everything. And I'm like, maybe I should go into the story about how that happened.
Yeah.
I was late at night. We didn't have a very busy airport, and they start sending people home, and I was bored. And a TRACOM facility means at that time the Navy only had two TRACOM facilities in the world. I happen to be at one of them. It just means you're approach controller. We have out to 60 miles airspace up to 30,000 feet. Usually that's a civilian job, but we had that job. And so I was bored one night, and the facility manager said, hey, why don't you set that scope and set out to 350 miles? And I'm scratching my head going, what? The radar goes to 350 miles? You've got to be kidding me.
You never knew.
I never knew, because I'm in the Navy. I'm trained at sea. We were trained that radar had I don't know, I'm going to classify the information, but there's limited range to radar.
Yeah.
And we were told that to overcome this range is the E-2 Hawkeye aircraft that would fly and extend the range of the radar back to the aircraft carrier.
Sure.
Never once were we told about anything about curvature of the Earth.
Yeah.
Not once.
No. Why would no? Yeah. Nobody else has been told that either. Apparently.
No, it was not part of my training. And the Coriolis effect sounds kind of funny. I learned about it from The Simpsons.
The Coriolis effect.
Yeah, because The Simpsons went like to the south of the equator, and they're in the embassy in the toilet. They're talking about.
Oh yeah, the toilet.
Yeah, and they had the anti-gravity machine to make toilets spin the right way, so you felt at home. That was the first time I ever heard about the Coriolis. I mean, we're talking about aircraft flying around 100 miles per hour, and you would think these things would come into play, but they just don't.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was perplexed, set my scope to 350 miles, and sure enough, I could see aircraft at 350 miles away, no problem. And I started, we weren't talking about, I didn't know anything about the curved Earth. I didn't know about the equation. And I started pulling out my calculator, and I'm like, okay, at just 300 miles away, which was a clear radar blimp, at 350, they got a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
But we're talking about 81,666 feet. And aircraft don't fly that high unless, classified mission.
Oh, of course.
That.
Yeah.
And I'm reading their airspeed and their altimeters, and I dialed it down. I'm watching Boston traffic and, the whole traffic pattern, because I'm interested in that kind of things and how civilians control aircraft, because it's a little bit different in the military.
Sure.
And then I'm sitting there going, well, it's impossible, according to these equations, for me to see the Boston traffic. I shouldn't have been able to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're following it, and forgive me if I'm giving the wrong terms. Jonathan's probably better at this than I am. So you're following them all the way into the Boston airport?
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh,
when
yeah.
they got down, and you didn't lose them at any point, as far as you
Well,
could see.
I have to say, 1993 was the last time I sat in front
Oh,
of
okay.
a
Well, that's
scope.
okay.
So I wanted to be as true and accurate as possible,
Sure.
and
So,
I was not suspicious of anything. So I wasn't like, really watching them.
well, no.
Yeah, I wasn't watching their altitude and airspeed, but yeah, I'm watching them hit the ground.
Yeah, but the point was is when you crank that sucker up. Now, was that the only time you did it, or was it one of those things where you're
No, all the time.
at that
So
point it's
yeah,
like, oh, I'm just going to turn this thing up whenever I'm bored.
yeah, it kind of begs the argument. So I'm sitting there going, well, if, is the radar bound, like ham radio, is the radar bouncing off the sky? Is like, no, clear day, cloudy day. I don't care what kind of day it was. You could have the worst weather in the world,
Yeah.
and I could see the whole eastern seaboard, no problem.
Wow. That's
Wow.
that's fantastic. Did when you're looking at it, I mean, so there's a couple questions that come to mind. First of all, why did they cap you at 60 miles normally if the range is 500% greater than that?
Oh no, it's all about airspace. You have
Oh,
arrival departure, which is 10 miles wide up to 10,000 feet. That airspace.
oh, I got you.
Yeah, you got the air traffic control area is 5 miles out up to 5,000 feet. Then there's approach. After approach is center.
So it's basically your wheelhouse. But the equipment you were using was rated for much higher than that.
Yeah, and I was blown away.
Wow. Wow, that's great. Was that airport? You probably wouldn't know this, but I've got to ask. Do you think the equipment that was out there? I mean, do a lot of people have that type of radar that can go out that far? Was that airport used for something much bigger at some point, and then they just had to dial them back? Do you think?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Mhm.
I can just say we're a TRACON facility,
Oh yeah.
so you would think our capabilities a little bit more, but I
I
honestly
I
don't.
got you. So because the military was involved, it's like they never underdo anything. So
Well,
it's like,
no, we controlled 5 civilian airports.
ah,
It's a very rare military operation where we controlled civilian air traffic as well.
wow, wow, that's fantastic. That's really, really great. So you listened to Jonathan's thing, and that just all of a sudden prompted you to email me.
Yeah, because I was like, oh my God. I mean, all these people would run around trying to prove stuff, and I'm sitting there going, well, I got a hardcore, forget the laser test. I got airport surveillance radar. I got airplanes with, squawking. They got transponders. The way it works, like your movie, you got this big sweep that goes around the radar screen, and it hits an aircraft, and it pings back to the radar, the altitude and the airspeed
Hmm.
because of the radar can't tell you that. It's the aircraft delivering that information to us.
Yeah.
And every time it does a sweep, it pings it, and we get a reading.
Wow. Wow. That's really
Now,
cool.
Mark, do you mind if I ask a question?
Oh, dude, you can ask anything. Go ahead.
So, well, you're talking about the being out that far on the distance. You guys were based out on the East Coast there. It's up in, I guess, I'm not sure exactly where the base was that you were at, but I
Well,
assume it's like,
the Kenny Benkport, where the president vacations, we would Air Force One
oh,
fly through our airspace all the time. That was pretty cool.
okay, by like Portland in that area.
Yeah,
Um,
Portland, Bangor, all those airports.
okay. So if you're on the water, how far out can you see out of the water that far? Would it shoot 350 out, out across the Atlantic?
Let me give my disclaimer. I'm not going to discuss any classified information. Those are ordinary.
So, yeah,
Well, would it
I
would
guess.
go ahead. Go
Because
ahead. Yeah.
we had warning areas and we had secret missions going on, so I don't want to get into that. But I was never told that this is classified information that the radar can go 350 miles. I was not the entire time I was an air traffic controller. I was only involved in one mission where the mission was so obvious. I didn't have there's the joke above your pay grade, but it really is true. It was above my pay grade, the mission, but what was happening was just so obvious that we were finally debriefed on what was going on and told this is classified secret. Airmen, air crew, air traffic controllers in general, we have a secret security clearance. So I was only involved in one mission where they said, hey, this is classified. But no, I was never told 350 miles is, classified.
Wow. Huh.
Oh,
I'd be curious to see how much that coincides with what we see on the flight radar trackers. When the aircraft are dropping off the coast, how far out they're getting. Because I mean, radar is
ah,
going to pick them up. If you're picking them up 350, I mean that's quite a ways off the coast, and a lot of these guys are dropping off pretty quick. So,
yeah, good
I mean,
point. Good point. Yeah, and Dale, I'm sure you watched some of the Clue stuff where I was showing in the Southern Hemisphere how when planes would get off. Now, granted, this was supposedly the GPS system, and I have to correct myself because I initially said that the GPS system claims to have 24 satellites that are spinning around the globe at all times. But actually, someone corrected me and said, no, actually it's 36 satellites that are
Oh
supposedly
yeah.
spinning all over the place. And even with that, when the planes that I was watching in the southern hemisphere would get 150, maybe 200 miles off the coast, the latitude and longitude coordinates would just disappear. They would go into approximated or estimated mode, and then stay gone until it was within like an hour of the destination airport.
Hmm.
Well, I never thought to look this up, but on the flat Earth mile, that 100 or 200 miles is much further. So they're dropping off at our maximum radar range.
Oh, you think that's
I just said,
I don't know if they, yeah, some of them were dropping off a lot quicker. I mean, up in the northern hemisphere, they go out. I mean, you're pretty much tracking them all the way across. But down south, a lot of those guys were dropping off once they were within 100 miles from the coast. I mean, it was
yeah,
pretty close.
I saw that too, which was
yeah.
which. Go ahead.
So 100 miles on the flat Earth, I don't have one in front of me. If you do the calculations, I bet 100 miles is more like 400.
Oh, you mean
Well,
down in the south?
Yeah, because according to the flat Earth, that 100 miles is not 100
Yeah,
miles.
yeah, you're right. You're right. The outer ring would be longer. Yeah, that and
Right. So
he's
they're dropping off according to the unclassified
yeah.
range of radar.
yeah, if the scale is yep.
Yeah, and that's perfect because what Jonathan, I think where you're going with this is that yeah, whatever the limit of the land radar is, that's it.
Hmm.
You're not tracking it. Although it
I never
makes
thought of this.
what? Go ahead.
I never thought of this before.
Oh, what we're talking about?
Yeah, I never crossed my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, the land system. Although you got to wonder what they're using to maybe I should do some more research now in some of the northern hemisphere flights. Like if something's going from San Francisco to Hawaii, you can't tell me it's got total coverage between San Francisco and Hawaii because those planes don't seem to. And I have not checked their latitude and longitude to see if the GPS is pinging back, but I wonder if they're dropping off for even a brief span.
They have to.
You wonder because I don't think there's anything between those two. Now, when you get out to the South Pacific, there's islands all over the place. At least outside Japan and near the Philippines and all that fun stuff and Guam. But there's big tracks that
Yeah.
shouldn't be laid out.
Well, and if it is flat, then obviously line of sight, that radar can go up quite a ways, and I'm sure that whatever you guys are using is not the best of what they have. I mean, if they can get something set up, they've got to be able to do better than that.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
So
we can.
Yeah. The thought was, and I was talking to different people. I think I was mentioning it with the Air Force guy as well. And I don't know if Jonathan, if I was discussing it with you, was that it seems like the old Loran system was never mothballed, that it was just enhanced. And I'm sorry,
yeah,
there was, and Dale, forgive me if you were the one that told me this, was that the Loran system got a real boost because they figured out really what they did was they built the GPS system into the receivers. And that's where the illusion of the GPS system is coming from, is that it's so what they did was when processors got so small that they could build them into the military got a hold of them first, but now every phone's got them, that actually the whole GPS system is in your phone. It has nothing to do with that. All you have to do is pipe a signal to it and the phone itself would simulate it.
mm-hmm, yep.
Yeah,
So,
I
that
would,
was me, but it was probably the Australian guy.
oh right,
yep.
the Australian guy. Yeah,
I
good.
would, I would love to go tour the engineering department at Garmin. That would, I think that would get a few answers.
Yeah, 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 definitely. So let me ask this, Dale. So now that you see it, so let me recap real fast. You looked at the flat Earth, because we're going to coming up on break here in a few minutes. You were looking at the flat Earth for a while in the beginning, but way back in April, May,
Oh, it's 6 or 8 months ago. I'm bad with time.
6 or 8 months ago, and then you got frustrated, weren't buying it, we're not buying it, got out, and then all of a sudden it just took this one little thing, and it's like it clicked for you.
Yeah, I took Jonathan Walker. That's hardcore proof.
Yeah.
number one, and then number two, it clicked. Oh my god, I was an air traffic controller.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing these things. We go
And
and break in 2 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, roughly. Go
Oh,
ahead though.
so I don't know if I should wait till after the break, but
Why? What do you got?
an interesting thing is the approach controller. One day he was training new, and he pointed out to me, "Oh my God, look! You can see that aircraft on the ground," and he's flipping out because this airplane's 40 miles away.
Okay.
And most of the time, airports have buildings around them. We got trees and stuff, and we just started noticing that we could always see the airplanes on the ground. Because they check in for flight advisories. It's a civilian airport I'm talking about.
Okay.
And they check in for flight advisories. We tell them to squawk, and we're seeing the blimp going, "This isn't possible." And then they squawk, and we're seeing the squawk on the ground. We're watching them taxi, and and everybody's like tripping out, going, "How could this be? How is this possible?"
So you're confirming it's not like it's not like you're seeing a weird ghost image on the radar and then
Right.
because they're actually confirming audio wise. They're when you say squawk, you mean that they're calling it in.
No, the
Go ahead,
aircraft
Jonathan.
actually. The aircraft on the aircraft side of things, we have a box called the transponder,
Yeah.
and it just basically communicates with their radar unit. So when we get pinged by the radar, that transponder picks up that signal and then broadcasts our information back out to it. So when we squawk, that's us sending the signal back out to the radar.
Got it. Okay, good thing I clarified because I was thinking the other way where like the pilots always call in with this and that information.
They probably think we squawk, but no.
Good laugh for the break. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, we got a minute. So when we come back, we'll talk about that. But just to reiterate, the do you remember what airport this was that was 40 miles away, right, by chance? The name
I mean, we had like, I'm
you had a
going
bunch,
like we had Augusta rings a bell and Bangor and
but this was one that was 40 miles away and well within your.
well, let's just say for the critics that might be listening, at 20 miles away, the surveillance, the airport surveillance radar is at 252 feet.
Yeah,
So you do the equation, you can take 266 feet minus 252 at 20 miles. The aircraft had to be 14.6 feet below the curvature of the Earth.
sure, yeah, and that's 20 miles.
That's just at 20.
Yeah, and at 40, if I'm not mistaken, we got
A lot further.
60 seconds. Let me punch this up real fast because I got the chart. And maybe well, you guys, I'm not going to have you read it while you're on with me because I don't want to lose the connection. But at let's see, yeah, 20 miles, yeah, 266 feet. At 40 miles, though, it goes way way up. So it's between 20 and 40. Like 30 miles, it's up to 600 feet, and at
And
40
then minus
miles,
252.
at 30 miles.
No, you have to minus the height of the
Oh
radar.
yeah, minus 252. Yeah, and at 40 miles minus two, before the minus, it's almost 1,100 feet,
Yeah.
which is a lot. And you're
Wow.
watching this thing the whole way.
Oh, yeah, and I'm pretty convinced it's 40 miles away.
Wow. All right. So when we come back from the break, we are going to continue our discussion with Dale, the flight controller, and our special guest Jonathan Walter from Walter Aviation out of Iowa. Who, and by the way, Jonathan, you haven't changed your opinion, have you?
No, not at all.
Perfect. All right, we come back. We'll keep talking to these guys about flat Earth and airplanes and everything about them. With us tonight, subject matter show. We've got an air traffic controller named Dale. Dale, are you still with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Fantastic. And we've got a special guest and returning guest, Jonathan Walter from Walter Aviation out in Iowa, who still believes in a flat Earth.
Yep, absolutely.
Right on. Have you? Let me switch over to Jonathan real quick before you get back. Dale, have you picked up anything new? Any little new tidbits? Anything that's helped reinforce what we talked about since the last time?
I keep looking at the attitude indicator, which is what we kind of discussed last time I was on, and I've really tried to dig in to get an answer, and I cannot get an answer as to the actual mechanics of how that gauge works in order to compensate for the curve. Every pilot I ask, and since our interview, I've asked a dozen or more pilots, dozens of pilots, I mean to say,
Yeah.
and I just asked a guy here last week, been a pilot for 20 years. He's an engineer by trade. He runs a plastics company. He's a sharp guy. And I sat him down. I said, "Hey, I got a question. proposed the concept, and he about fell out of his chair, and he started laughing. He's like, "How have I never thought of that?" He says, he says, "I don't know." He says, and he went home, and he was calling me that the rest of that night. He was emailing me. He's like, "I can't figure it out. I don't know." And uh,
Great. So
so
you're wrecking people's
yeah,
minds.
I'm just terrorizing the pilot community around here.
Why
No,
don't you just walk up to them? Why don't you like sneak up to them just before they get on a flight and whisper in their ear, "It's flat."
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, actually, one thing I want to mention, over the break here, I just popped up, one of the flight tracking programs, FlightAware.com. I'm sure a lot of people use that to track flights. You had mentioned, the tracking between the coast of California and Hawaii.
Yeah,
Now, this isn't by any means an enduring test, but I just popped up, and there's, 3, 4 dozen flights going between the coasts that pops up on the radar.
sure.
Every single one of them, I keep clicking and clicking. I'm trying all of them that I could over the break. I went through a dozen of them, dozen or two of them, and not a single one of them is actually being tracked. It's all estimated or approximated.
Oh, I knew
So,
it. I knew
yep.
it. Why?
If anybody doesn't believe me, go out and look at it right now.
I just, it didn't even occur to me. I was so focused on the Southern Hemisphere, and I didn't even, until I got you two guys on the show, it didn't
Yep.
even occur to me. So, hey, somebody out there listening to this, make another video or two. I'm looking at you, propaganda destroyer. That he likes following that stuff. Now, generally, he focuses on the South Pacific,
Yep.
stuff like going from Hawaii south
Yep.
to other islands. But yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's pretty much what I
Yep.
expect. So great. It's dropping off everywhere.
I think that should definitely be a good test for people. I mean, I'm not, I maybe there's a few out there, but I haven't seen any yet, and every one of them is approximated. Anywhere off the coast of California, and until they get right up close to Hawaii, within a few hundred miles of what it looks like, then they pop back up. So
Oh, I knew it. Why was I
it,
so dumb not to look at those? Because people said,
yep.
you should do something in the northern hemisphere, and I was going, yeah, but the routes aren't exaggerated that much. But now,
I,
if they're
I really thought you'd be wrong on that. I thought, no, for sure they were going to pick that up, but no. And in fact, if that's true, I mean, if you can't, if they're not tracking that, I mean, you were mentioning before, people should be concerned. You're going on these flights in the southern hemisphere, you're not being tracked.
yeah,
It's not safe. How many people go to Hawaii and
yeah,
back?
yeah,
I mean,
Hawaii. Are you
geez.
kidding? Do you know how many
Yeah,
millions of Americans go
yeah.
to Hawaii? And those flights are, yeah,
I,
your plane could crash in the middle of
yep.
nowhere. No one's gonna know where you are.
I'm still, I'm while we're talking, I keep
Uh,
clicking. I cannot find any.
All
So,
right, well, keep looking. We'll go back
anyway,
to Dale.
so yeah, yeah.
Let's see what he's doing. Hey, Dale. So, what was that story you were going to tell us before we went to break?
I'm just laughing right now because we discovered the Hawaiian flights.
Great. That's fantastic. Which also means, I guarantee it, you're going to flip over the Atlantic if you're going to London once you get off of Canada certain ways, or if you're. I mean, I know there's more islands, but I don't think there's that many islands between the eastern seaboard and London, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, we'll have to look at them all. Great. That only took me a year. Before
Hey,
it
that's
came up.
my point.
But the truth, I mean, it's not going to change that much, but it does reinforce the GPS system. And some people have
Yeah.
said, well, and it's going to crush the people that have said, well, because I've gotten emails where people have messaged me or called me and said, well, that's in the southern hemisphere. That's what the GPS does because there's no coverage down there. I'm going, well, why would you call it a global positioning system? Why would you even use the word? It's not a partial positioning system or a land positioning system. It's global. Plus, it's the United States military with not 24 folks, but 36 satellites that are supposedly spinning all over the place. The DoD doesn't do anything small, and if they could have overlapping blanket coverage, that's exactly what they would do.
Hmm.
And by the way, that also reinforces that point that you brought up, Jonathan, some time ago, that why there's dead spots in the where you are, where you said there'd be like dead spots in the GPS system for no apparent reason over land.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Anyway, while he's doing his thing, Dale, what when we left you were talking about tracking planes on the ground. Oh, by the way, and I've got to add something to that because I just thought of this, which was at 20 something miles away, you're tracking planes on the ground with a radar. Now, granted, the radar's up a little ways, but the thing is that radar still would have to be kind of sneaking over the curve. It's not like it's got a whole bunch of room to play with if there's a curve to the globe, right?
Yeah, at 20 miles, it's 14 feet.
Yeah, I mean, you're really going to get full. It's not going to be spotty. It's not going to break up. When you're sneaking over the curve and looking at it like in an airport that far away. Yeah, Yeah, I think you're dead on. So anyway, sorry. So you were saying
I can't remember the story I was going to tell before the break.
something about a supervisor. You were looking at a plane that was on the ground at another airport. That,
Well, yeah, but basically the approach controller is just completely freaking out that we can see airplanes on the ground because usually, there's buildings around the airport that get in the way, there's trees, and usually they have to take off, and right when they get about, 50 feet in the air, then we can see the transponder.
yeah, yeah, good points. I mean, yeah, there's buildings all over the place, and
But how do we see, but occasionally, the radar apparently peeked through the buildings and stuff, and, you know, um, I
in
mean,
any
Augusta was 26 miles away, and this airport was 40 miles away, which is why the approach control was completely freaking out. You know,
wow. So is there in that type of airport was there a lot of downtime or was it just every once in a
a
while you get
lot, yeah, a lot of downtime.
so you guys would kind of play with this and that, but you probably like anybody. I mean, you were there for years and years, and Jonathan, same sort of thing. Like, and you fly, by the way.
I don't have a license, but I've flown. I actually got to go up with the.
So you're an illegal pilot. It's
No, I'm not a legal pilot. There's a licensed
drug
pilot
running.
in the cockpit, obviously.
Yeah.
I got to go with the Blue Angels once. I went up and felt Albert during an air show with
Oh, nice.
the assisted jet takeoff, JTOL they call it, was a assisted. I forgot the abbreviation.
Yeah.
So yeah, that thing went. I just love how they didn't brief us. And there's a cargo plane. You're sitting sideways, and these guys in the back of the plane. I'm like, what they're doing? Nobody knows what's going on. And all of a sudden we take off. Boom! The jets kick in, and these guys are against. Once they were on the floor, now they're on the ceiling, and I'm in my seatbelt, totally sideways. My feet are just about touching my hands, and we're just flying straight up in the air. And I was told it was a 3G takeoff, which is equivalent, to my understanding, the space shuttle.
Oh,
So I
Yep,
experienced the
yep.
same takeoff as the space shuttle, and boy, did that rip me apart. And then all of a sudden, the jet engines go out, and they're, the guys are back going, they're going, yeah, whatever. They're saying the engine, the jets are extinguished.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, weightlessness. Oh my God, what an amazing feeling. We were completely weightless, floating around, hair in the air. I mean, it probably lasted 10 seconds, but it felt like an hour. It was the most amazing feeling in my life. And then we do this bank, and there's 90,000 people at the air show that day. And I'm looking at my window, but I'm looking straight down at the ground, and we do all these crazy maneuvers and then land. And I was like, oh my, I can't believe that just happened.
You sound just like one of my aerobatic ride passengers that.
Oh
in the
boy,
summer, yeah.
I'd probably throw up on your instruments. You'd be wiping them off.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, I didn't know you. I'm sorry. You take people for joyrides?
Yeah, I'm actually we do aerobatic thrower flights. I'm an aerobatic instructor for my company here, what I teach. So part of what I do is actually taking pilots up and teaching them to do advanced maneuvers with the airplane for safety, not just to be like an airshow pilot,
Yeah.
not for stunts, but yeah, and we'll take it, roll the airplane upside down, do loops, rolls, all the fun stuff. So
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Cool. Not just to dodge UFOs or anything like that.
No, yeah, I had to say I liked your intro there, but unfortunately, Iowa must be like the one place that UFOs don't visit. I don't know anybody in Iowa that's seen a UFO like in Iowa. It's everywhere else, but they avoid
Really?
us. We're just a really boring state or something. I don't know.
Wow, that's really well. Okay, so you have never seen one, but what about you, Dale? You ever seen anything funny?
I've been waiting for this question.
Oh, I gotta ask. I mean, it's well.
I
Okay,
know.
no, let me.
Everyone
No. Let me give the disclaimer first, and that is, I am a huge believer. I was not, I had never seen anything that was really weird in the skies, and then I watched that. Some people already know this story. I had watched some video where a British guy at the very end of the video, it was a general conspiracy stuff, aliens, and I wasn't really that excited about the whole thing. But he gets to the end. He goes, you want to see something interesting? Get yourself a pair of night vision goggles
exactly.
and start looking up. And I'm just going, oh, right on. I am totally going to do that. So I
$3,000, and if you hit light, they're destroyed.
well, you can get them cheaper than that. I mean, you can get Gen 1s for, I don't know, $400.
But still, you hit light, and
Well, yeah, you got to be careful. Yeah, you don't want to. You're absolutely right, though. Yeah, you don't want to fry them. And I was very, very careful about these things because, yeah, they're not. It's not like they're binoculars. They're
the things you'll see with those would just like make flat Earth seem like kindergarten.
Well, no, not at all. But I looked at these things because these things fly, at least the things I saw, flew up so high. They were at least 80, 100,000 feet. And they were silent, and they were moving in all sorts of different directions. But what I was going to get at was when I was looking at them the first night, because it's really, not to use a cliche, but it's night and day. You put these things on, you're looking up there,
I
and
know.
the first thing you see is the sky. There's so many things moving up there, and you're going,
Tons.
tons of stuff. I was going, well,
Tons.
well, it's not like I go. I first comment was like, wow, there's a lot of satellites up there. That's a lot of satellites, and I had heard rumors that there was a bunch of satellites. I was going, okay, and then I'm getting bored pretty quick. I was
But
going,
they're not
okay.
satellites.
Yeah, they're not satellites. I watch this satellite supposedly just slow down and stop, and then it just sits there like it's lost. And then it just makes kind of a slow left-hand turn and then picks up speed really fast and goes ballistic. And then, I mean, like out of sight, all without a single sound. I mean, there was a couple of
Yeah.
flashes here and there, but you couldn't see it with the naked eye. And this
No.
happened.
Yeah.
This happened all the time, and I was going, okay, so what exactly am I looking at? So now the answer, and I know people think I'm being a smartass when I do it, when they say, "Oh, well, flat Earth. What about satellites?" I go, really? Who told you they were satellites? What exactly makes you think they're satellites? Just because somebody said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we got satellites up there. You're buying it." It's like, "Oh, we see lights in the sky." I go, "Yeah, you've seen something." But I don't. Whatever I seen certainly aren't satellites, and they aren't
They don't
us.
act like satellites with
So
those
so
binoculars.
so anyway, do you believe? Give me your take on it. You can say pass if you want, if you don't want to.
Well,
Yeah.
before I forget, I can't remember the guy's name, but I meant to look this up because I knew this was going to come up.
What?
He has the expensive $3,000 binoculars, and he
Yeah.
shines a beam in the sky, some type of
Oh, I know which guy you're talking about. Yeah.
and it attracts these.
Things.
Thank you. Things.
These objects.
And not only that, no, let me. Oh boy, I gotta think here for a minute how to say this because
It's all right. Take your time.
I don't want to cross the line.
Well, I'm sorry. What is this a military matter that you don't want to?
Well, this guy will show beings on the ground that are not necessarily that you
Oh,
would see with your normal eyes.
oh, I got you. You mean
Uh,
so if you take your night vision and focus it on the
yeah,
different.
and then these basically things come in that look like aircraft, and they're here. Let me give you a parable. It's kind of like I'm trying to think of going. If you're going hunting and somebody's looking for a deer,
Yeah.
and these things are like scouting for stuff, and then they find something, and then they go do their thing.
Oh, I got you. Recon.
Yeah,
And
recon.
you're seeing those through the night vision or on the scope?
Yeah, you can see with night vision, no problem. It's easy.
Oh,
Oh my god, it's
are
ridiculous.
you were you referencing any of these with the scope at the same time by any chance?
Well, okay. Well, I'll go there.
You might as well. We're going down that road.
Um,
Because
boy.
these things can't sometimes. Yeah, I'm just giving some of this. Sometimes they can be picked up radar, and sometimes they can't.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is they can, which is just blew my mind when we had one instant.
Yeah.
Again, bored late at night. Seems like where all these stories begin. The approach. It was only three of us in the radar room, the approach controller and two of us, and just by weird coincidence, we were all looking at the approach controller's scope, and this thing went flying across the.
Scope.
It's hard for me to talk about this. The scope, and it was 2 football fields wide and 2 football fields long, and the radar signature was that of an aircraft identing. Now, Jonathan might be able to go into more details.
Wait.
1993, since I talk about air traffic control stuff, but ident makes basically when an
Wait.
aircraft.
You
Go
had
ahead.
a foot thing of those 2 football fields wide by long that idented on your radar?
Yeah.
What's idented? Somebody
What?
tell me.
Okay, that's basically so to confirm contact with the target, the air traffic controller will ask the pilot to ident. And basically on that transponder box that I was talking about earlier, there's an ident button. We push the ident button and it actually makes the transponder instantaneously send out a signal, basically light up and flash up so that it on the controller screen that pilot's or that aircraft will light up compared to everyone else, so he knows that that's you. Does that make sense?
What?
Yeah.
This thing said, "Oh yeah, yeah."
Well, I'm not saying it was identing. I'm saying the
It
radar
was,
signature was so bright.
yeah, that it was
It was
equivalent.
as if it wasn't squawking or
Oh, thank God!
transponding.
You scared me for a while.
Yeah. But the radar signature was just so bright. The illumination was 3 times of an ident.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
And the scope was set to 100 miles, and so it covered 100 miles in the blink of an eye, which puts it around 400,000 miles per hour.
Wow.
400,000? No, 4,000.
Do the math. Blink of an eye,
And how big was the scope?
100 miles.
Good Lord.
I did the math. I could be wrong. We're
Well,
talking.
no, I mean, if 100 miles in a fraction of a second, yeah,
Yeah,
that would be extremely fast.
yeah, like 400,000 miles per hour.
Wow. Well, it could have engaged whatever I like to call them the unified field engines at that point, because if everyone doesn't know what a unified field engine is, that's the mythical or legendary, whatever you want to call it, engine that supposedly powers these things, which is the balanced equation between gravitational waves and electromagnetic waves. And the theory behind that is, and supposedly Einstein knew, but he was never going to give it up to the military because he saw what they did with atomic weapons, was that if you could balance the equation between electromagnetic and gravitational waves, you can create an aircraft, or whatever you want to call it. An aircraft is good as anything, but it would work underwater and just about anywhere else. That could travel at almost unbelievable speeds with extremely fast acceleration and no g-forces to speak of. But this reminds me, because you were talking about something that was that big and that wide. I'm sorry, that long and that wide, and that reminds me of, if anyone knows about this one, is the 1986 Japan cargo plane incident.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yep.
Which, if anyone hasn't heard about that one, you guys have. But on the air, where this Japan cargo plane
I
was,
can't believe you went public with it.
well,
Yeah.
that's what sunk him. And of course, the picture they used of him was so flattering. He's got that crazy eye, and he's kind of showing, with his hands how the
Oh,
plane's.
they make them all look crazy.
Oh yeah, but there was this 747 cargo plane flying, back to the States, and it was going by Alaska, and he had a giant, what was it, 600 feet by 600 feet, like a walnut-shaped aircraft. He said it was several times bigger than an aircraft carrier, that seemed to have some interest in him and was tailing him. And so, he got a bit concerned because it was much bigger than a 747, which, was the flagship of the day. And he decided to call the Air Force base ahead. And so they had him and they said, yeah, we absolutely see this thing on radar. So here, do a couple of maneuvers. So they had him you'll have to forgive me if I butcher this, like a couple slow circles, either left hand, either clockwise or counterclockwise, to see if he could lose them. Like either they would go by or would follow him, and it followed him. To the point where he couldn't ditch him, obviously. So eventually they were going to scramble jets, and he goes, look, I'm just going to keep on my approach. And eventually the thing veered off and left. But yeah, when he hit the ground, of course, he was so excited that he told the press, and that was it. He had a desk job for the rest of his very short career.
Hmm.
He didn't get to, and I reference him when I said that you would be better off talking about having that, when I said that in the clues, when I said, if you think that talking about flat Earth is bad, it's worse than going to your boss and saying that you had a UFO follow you for several hours, and when you landed, and making an official report about it. That's how bad it is. If you go to your
Hmm.
boss from if you're a professional pilot, and you go to your boss, say, oh yeah, by the way, I think the maps are wrong because I think the Earth is flat. They'll send you in for counseling at
Yep.
that point. So anyway, sorry, I completely digress. So this thing,
Oh, well, let me, before I forget. So, when this happened, the approach controller turned around, who was also the facility watch supervisor. She's in charge of the whole facility.
Yeah.
She turns around, her pardon the expression, mouth to the floor, eyes wide open. She goes, "Did you see that?" And I'm low ranking guy at this time, and I looked at the guy next to him. We both looked at each other, and we looked at her, and we said, "Yeah." and that was the end of it.
But it was so fast. I mean, I'm sure you guys kind of waved it off, at least initially, as a mechanical thing, right? It was like, well, the scope must be.
Well, no, we're not trained for that. We didn't, we're not trained to call it NORAD and go, hey, there's a.
Do you have anything going on in your area that's gigantic?
Well, we had an incident where that did happen, but that was more ruled out civilian aircraft. Well, I mean, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you mean like a spy plane type of thing?
No, we had well, I was also a base operations manager. I was part of search and rescue. We're tied in the whole, eastern seaboard. When things go wrong, I coordinate search and rescue missions.
Yeah.
That was one of my jobs. It's not tower radar; it's space operations.
Yeah.
We file flight plans and yada yada. And we had an instance once. All the law enforcement's everyone has our phone number, and our phone just blew up. I mean, I had state police, sheriffs, local police. I had everyone calling me, asking, what the heck's going on, because civilians reported a aircraft flying overhead, knocking out all the power for 200 miles on the eastern seaboard.
Straight out of Close Encounters in the Third Kind.
Well, no, it's
Yeah.
we have the radar jamming aircraft. Boy, the A6 is it? I'm going to blank on it.
Yeah.
Well, everybody knows in Desert Shield and Storm, the first thing they do is they fly these aircraft in and they knock out all the power. We saw Baghdad, power go dead. Remember that?
Okay, yeah, with localized pulses.
No, it's the aircraft that does that.
No, but I mean, is it a localized EMP?
But it uses radiation.
Oh, okay, cool.
It has a foot. It has lead that's a foot in depth in front of the pilot to protect it from the radiation. I don't know if I should say this part, but I think it's unclassified.
Sure.
The canopy has real gold in it to protect itself from the radiation. Now, it's really, really hard to find a picture of this aircraft.
Sure.
I don't know if one exists. I was an aircraft carrier, so I saw it. And when the sun shines just right, the canopy turns gold. I mean, like a gold bar.
Wow.
This thing is set up for major radiation. We had I think I can talk about this. We had an incident once where this aircraft accidentally flipped the switch and turned on its radar jamming equipment. And, radiated the guy in front of him, and that guy died of radiation poison.
No doubt. Well, yeah. I mean, if the canopy, seriously, 12 inches of lead shielding.
Yeah.
Good Lord. That's.
I hope that's unclassified.
Well, no. I mean, I've said several times that because I had to deal with the Van Allen radiation belt problem, and that is there's only two. Most people know that lead is a really good shield against radiation. We all use it when we go to the dentist. But what's even more effective is gold. Gold is.
Well, you can see through gold because the canopy had gold in it, so you can still see through it, but the gold would protect you.
Yeah. Gold is literally almost twice as heavy as lead, and most people don't know that. You joke about it in the movies where it's like, this gold bar is heavy. It's like, yeah, it's twice as heavy as lead. Lead is heavy, and but nobody ever holds a big chunk of gold, so you never know. But I'm sure prospectors did back in the day. Real quick before we go to break, because we got a minute or so, I want to say this real quick about because I watched a movie recently, Bridge of Spies. I downloaded it. It was about the U-2 spy plane that was shot down and how they negotiated the plane. Got it out. But what I was trying to tell people as far as spy planes go, people forget as far as keeping secrets in the military, and that is until we had a spy plane shot down, we didn't have a spy plane. They called it, and I listened to this in the movie where they called it, even when they announced it before the Russians paraded the pilot around, they called it a NASA plane who had gone off course. And remember, this was 1960. NASA wasn't even 2 years old. It's like, really? A NASA plane went off course? And then we didn't have another spy plane that replaced it until the SR-71 was retired. It's like, oh yeah, we're retiring the SR-71. Like, what are you talking about? You have another spy plane? And then they asked and said, okay, what are you going to replace the SR-71 with? And they said, oh, nothing. Like,
of course.
You're killing me. So now we got...
And then the pilot didn't kill himself, which he should have.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Where
he should have.
He probably should have.
I'm a military man. That pilot, he was a disgrace.
Yeah. Anyway, when we come back, more flight instructor and flight controller. We've got Dale, a flight controller, and returning with us is Jonathan Walter from Walter Aviation. You guys both still here?
Yeah.
Yes, and I need to clarify. I was an air traffic controller, not a flight controller.
Oh, Air traffic controller. Sorry. Air
That's
traffic.
okay. Some people, the flight controller is something different.
Got it. No, I know. It's why you're the subject matter
I mean,
expert.
many people think I was the guy on the flight deck holding up the flags, letting the plane know if they're left or, the wings are dipping. And no, that's not me.
Got it. You were that, but you crashed too many of those, and so
Yeah,
they
they're very
put
funny,
you in the
Mark. Very
tower.
funny.
Got it. Somebody's asking you directions. You're using the flags to point them. It's like, no, over there,
That
over
was
there.
never an air traffic controller.
Okay.
I don't
What?
want to say where we are on the ship, but no, we're radar.
Got it. Okay. Wait, I'm sorry. So you weren't a flight controller. You were an air traffic controller.
I was an air traffic controller.
Got it. Okay. No, it's perfectly fine. That's
Yeah,
why
FAA certified.
Okay. Here we go. Before we get to our thing, because there was a couple we've got chat stuff that's coming off from you guys. You told me to remind you of the United States Air Force Alaska radar station.
I'm not comfortable talking about that at this time. Maybe
Okay.
Let's do the chat room.
Oh no, not chat room. It was just I was just reading through the notes that you guys had. No, I'm not going to ask this chat room because the chat room usually distracts me. But you don't have to talk about that.
I'm not. I can't.
That's okay. It was a side story anyway.
I want to talk about it. I don't know if I'll feel comfortable.
Well, it comes up.
The preface is. I'll just tell the preface. I won't go into the material.
Uh-huh.
I ran into a person I knew very well, so he was legit, and he was stationed in Alaska, and his job was to. He's a radar controller, and his job was to protect the United States of aircraft flying in through Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, he told me a story that he never said, "Hey, this is classified."
Okay.
What the heck? I'll just say it.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
I'll say it.
It's like, you can always change your mind. I can edit it.
Well, are we live on the air? I guess so.
Yes, we are, but that's
okay.
okay. We don't have that. I mean, we have some people listening, but more people listen to us after the fact.
Yeah.
So.
So anyway, the radar. I don't want to go into the capabilities of the radar.
Okay. You can use words like far or long.
We went really far out.
Okay, it's a long distance radar.
A very long distance, and his job was to not only protect America from whatever Russian aircraft coming in, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But his main job, his your mission priority. Number one mission priority was to track aircraft coming in through the North Pole, and to watch them come through the North Pole, down through Alaska, into the United States. He would track them all throughout the United States, and his job was to make sure that they went up through Alaska, out the North Pole, and left.
Okay.
And he was not, his direct orders were not to notify anybody, just track them. The only time he used to sound the alert is if one of these, I hate the word UFO because anything you can't identify as a UFO. Yep. But if one of these objects, I'm more comfortable saying.
Yeah, no, object's a good word.
If one of these objects didn't leave, then he notified his commanding officer. Then NORAD was notified. Then there was a full-blown, sortie mission.
Yeah, scramble.
They scrambled and they went after the guy like, the Russians are here.
Yeah. Why not? Because that's the first thing you're supposed to think of. Yeah. Whatever the object is.
But we're both, before I could say it, he's scratching his head. It's like, why the heck am I tracking aircraft that we don't identify coming into the United States through the North Pole, which is a no-fly zone?
Yeah.
Through Alaska into America. I'm tracking them all throughout the country, and I just have to make sure they leave. And he's going, he's scratching his head going,
Wait a minute.
I don't get it.
Wait a minute. I know where you're going with this. Seriously? Is that what you're kind of hinting at? Is that
the government knows?
It's that, wait, his whole job was to track objects, whether they have a call sign or not.
None of them had a call sign.
Okay, so he's exclusively tracking objects that have no call signs?
Coming in from
just one area, the North Pole.
Halfway between here and the moon.
What elevations was he rated to monitor? How high?
Know.
So these things were coming.
He told me halfway between here and the moon is when he could pick them up.
And of course, now we know the moon isn't as far away as we think it is. So they were
Right.
coming in from,
That might be more feasible.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah. They're coming in from very high altitudes. They're coming in. They're coming down through
The
uh,
North Pole.
North Pole, going flying over the states, and he just had to make so just make sure that they're not doing anything. Well, as far as we know, they're not doing anything funny, and then they turn around and go back, and he just has to make sure that they leave, that they disappear off his scope, and he doesn't have to worry about them anymore.
Yeah, and this is why this is in the 90s.
Yeah.
He track about 10 a week.
Oh, okay. So it's not like the skies were full of them. It's not like Men in Black scenario where
Well,
it's
that's when he's on duty. I didn't ask him when he was on duty, what the hours. I didn't go into details.
oh,
I was blown away. When he told me that, he didn't, again, he didn't say this is classified information.
yeah.
So I'm not, like I said, I'll never divulge classified information, but he's,
But if they didn't leave in a timely manner, they would eventually, if they lingered,
oh,
he,
NORAD was notified.
yeah, and then they'd scramble.
Scramble, full, like,
And
like,
not that they could do anything anyway, but they were that's protocol. You have to scramble, and you gotta send them that. Wow, that's really cool stuff. I dig it. I really dig it. That's fantastic.
Interesting.
Yeah. Hey, quick and a horrible segue. I'm going to do it because I'm looking at your notes, Jonathan, and that
Yeah.
is you wanted to mention. Did you have something you wanted to kind of chime in about satellite photos versus aerial photography,
Yeah.
or was it a question?
No, no. I just had a couple of comments on that. Yeah, we can go that route.
Yeah.
Sure. I guess regarding satellites, I've seen a couple people come out and saying, talking about, well, how do satellites take, photos of the Earth, because we have the photos,
Yeah.
everybody can get on Google Earth and look at it. And I I personally know probably at least a dozen or more pilots that have had a career of any duration doing aerial photography,
Yeah.
and the aircraft fly anywhere from 1,000 feet off the ground up to 40,000 feet, 30,000 feet I guess probably is more realistic.
Yeah.
And then they have very expensive cameras that do aerial photography.
Sure.
Now, just to kind of back up that whole concept, they could go out and do, like, I know, for example, the state of Indiana. They could do the whole state of Indiana in, say, a month or two.
Mm-hmm.
They would usually take a couple airplanes, and they could basically give you a complete map, Google Earth map, from, within a matter of a couple months. So the feasibility of actually, getting current data and images, I think, is certainly well within reason using
yeah.
aircraft. And something I came across, I just pulled it up here. I wanted to mention this. As I was looking into all this, I found it's Alaska. It's called alaskamapped.org, and I was looking through there, and I was looking through high altitude photography, and this is a website dealing with Alaska high altitude photography, and right on the website and they're discussing this project. They said that this is a quote from the website, that much of Alaska was photographed from high altitude U-2 and ER-2 aircraft between 1978 and 1986 under a multi-agency state and federal partnership. Right there they're telling you that they are using high altitude U-2 spy planes to do the aerial photography, and they did like 90% of the state, and they said that's like the last time they've ever mapped the whole state. Now, if we have satellites, why are we not? Why is that?
Yeah, excellent point. No,
So, anyway.
people do not understand. We've never thrown away the U-2. It is too good a plane. It is too efficient to just scrap. It's basically, you guys know better than anybody. I mean, it's a glider with a big engine on it. It can fly extremely high for long durations, and it can take great pictures. So why in the world would you get rid of it? I mean, we don't. Yeah, the military gets rid of stuff that they consider obsolete. But there's some things they hang on to for a long time. The perfect example would be the M2 machine gun. That thing's been around since the 40s, and it's in fact earlier than the 40s. And it's a 50 caliber machine gun that's mounted on Jeeps and tanks. They're still using it today. It's because the design was so good that there was nothing they could replace it with. Now with the U2, now they've changed its role, what they could do with the U2. So taking pictures, that's one thing. So the SR-71 took a different role, and then whatever the Aurora's doing now, who knows what they're using with that thing for. But if anyone ever catches a picture of Aurora, there's people willing to pay cash money for a picture of that thing. But nobody, as far as I know, has taken a shot. Anyway,
But the naysayers are going to talk about the SR-71 aircraft.
oh, and say that the SR-71 is.
Yeah, I mean, aircraft have a shelf life. I mean,
Oh yeah, sure.
the
Oh yeah.
my opinion, the U-2's gone. The SR-71 is gone. They got something more advanced.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
sure, but
But clearly,
They have a shelf life.
but as far as well, of course they got a shelf life, but they do like to hang on to things that work well for them, at least for certain tasks. But as what was Jonathan was saying is that is it because people have said, well, it's the satellites that take the picture. It's like, no, 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 no. We've got
no.
so many aircraft flying around at various altitudes. It would take nothing to
Yep.
map the world and
Yep.
and give the data. Even just using civilian aircraft, you could get
Yep.
enough data to feed Google Earth. Not to mention what declassified things the military could give them.
Well, yeah, the state of Alaska was photographed with a U-2.
Yeah,
The 90% of the state of Alaska back in 78 through 86. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's feasible. It's well within being feasible. Hey,
Absolutely.
well, segue back to your radar comments with Dale. Over the break, I checked doing some more radar tracking, and go figure. I think this is new, and I would like to put this out there for anyone that can confirm this, but this is a thing that I use on a daily basis, and it always used to track aircraft in the northern hemisphere across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And I'm no longer picking up anybody. All the flights across the Atlantic are now estimated once they leave the coast. That's a whole new change on the system as far as unless I'm just forgetting how this whole thing worked.
Because
You
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, no,
I
go
was
ahead.
saying, you used to be able to track all the way across the Atlantic. They go up over the coast of New Brunswick in that area, and then across and over to England, and you could track them, and it would have the actual data. Now that's all showing. It just says estimated all the way across. So that's new. And I would love to see if somebody could find a track, if they had a record where they could show the track of it actually being tracked and giving its position across the North Atlantic. And then, by the way, Dale, I did the measurements right now where all these aircraft are dropping off, and it's all exactly pegging out about 200, I'd say 200 to 300 miles off the coast of the Northeast, North America there.
On a
So
globe
that's
map.
fitting right in with what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, on a globe map they are.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
well,
yeah.
but 200 miles in the north, but in the south, much shorter because the miles are off
Right.
because the
Yeah.
scale's off.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, these
Wow.
are going out 200, 300 miles before they cut off. So
Wow.
Yeah.
anyway,
Wow.
interesting.
Great. Yeah, great stuff.
I think we created a new video.
Yeah. Somebody's well, I don't know if I'm going to do a new clue because of it, but definitely somebody
Yeah.
can modify. I know there's a couple guys out there that really just spend a lot of time on the radars, where on the GPS system database that everybody's tied into.
Yep.
But hey, I got a question for actually both you guys, real quick, which is something because if I don't, I should have written it down. I would have remembered it earlier, but there was something I had heard years ago, which was because we're kind of delving into the curvature of the Earth, and then are there objects flying around up there, which I firmly believe there are because I've seen them. But I had always heard that the commercial aircraft used to fly back in the day. They used to get upwards of around 48,000, pushing 50,000 feet every once in a while to deal with weather, and now they don't do that anymore. And there was a book, and I can't remember the name of the book, kind of like something to the effect of the strange things above 50,000 feet. That there were too many pilots reporting weird stuff above 50,000 feet. And when I started doing business travel in the late 90s, early 2000s, planes didn't fly that high anymore. They everything you guys know. I mean, they're capped out at what 30 something thousand usually.
35.
Barely.
Well,
I
30 to 40, yeah.
yeah
40
I
tops.
yeah I haven't seen 40 even in a while. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen
Yep.
38, 39, but
Yep.
I haven't even it's like apparently when you hit 40, pilots freak out now. It's like no, we got to go down. It's like why? Even they don't know. But did you ever hear anything along those lines? Did anyone hear any whispers, rumors, myths, legends, rainbows, unicorns?
I have not.
I haven't, but it's certainly feasible if they could get to that altitude. I mean, 747s are in the range of between 40 and 50,000, but a lot of the private jets, Gulf Streams and some of the citations can get up to easily get above 50,000 feet service ceiling. So
Ooh,
they can get up there.
well, that's
That's
cool.
all I know about it. But
Huh. I wonder. I should look into that. I'll see if I can pick up a hard copy of that because it was something along the lines of that you're more likely to see things, strange stuff, up at that altitude. But who knows? I mean, in your
interesting.
case, I'm really surprised though, Jonathan, that you've never seen anything out in Iowa. I know that
Yeah,
Iowa is not exactly the most exciting state in the world, but
no, but it's perfect for the flat Earth concept because it is flat.
it is super flat.
Is there military
And
bases out there? I mean,
no, we have nothing.
that's
There's
fine.
some MOAs out on the western side of the state, but there's nothing in the eastern side where we're at. But and just along those lines, speaking of Iowa and flat Earth, just the other night we were up flying, and it was a super crystal clear night. A lot of times in the winter you get really that dense air, but it's crystal clear. There's no humidity, and I could see lights out to basically I think I've calculated it was about 70 to 80 miles out, and I was about 1,000 feet off the ground. You do the math, and it doesn't add up. So
Nice,
it's just we see it all
nice.
the time out here.
Oh,
So
well, I saw, and we'll get back to Dale in 1 second, but I got to mention this, and that was, and forgive me if I've repeated this before ever on air, but did I show you did I talk about the Chicago skyline time lapse?
I love it. Go, go.
Well,
time lapse.
the time lapse. Well, there was this guy, the guy that did the famous shot of the Chicago skyline, kind of at sunset, and then one of the weather reporters on the local news said, "Well, this is a mirage. It's got to be a mirage." Well, it turns out the same photographer. No one even talked about this, and somebody finally, from the Flat Earth group, put it up online, and I'm going to use it in part of the slideshow for this video. Somebody he actually did a time lapse, like an 18-hour time lapse from the beach from that same location, and weather came by, and you could see the sun tracking, and then it got dark, and everything lit up, but basically the camera didn't move. He had it perfectly locked in, and the buildings were there the entire time. So yeah,
Wow.
you want to show me a
Yeah.
mirage from a single snapshot? Yeah, fine. You want to call it a mirage? Fine. You can have that. I'll give you that one to you for free. But an 18-hour mirage that doesn't waver at all in weather, clouds are going by and then it lights up at night. And I think at the end you could even see the cleaning crews, the janitor crews moving through the building from the top down, where the lights would light up per floor and like move down, moving down. I was going, that's great.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, Mirage, my ass, it's Mirage.
Yeah.
It's
It's a,
ridiculous.
it doesn't add up. And I want to kind of point out too, John Laban. He had some awesome videos. He did Ball Earth Math, I think is what he called them.
Yeah.
It was a series, and he actually goes into. And I just want to point this out because a lot of people with the curvature formula, 8 inches per mile squared, that whole thing,
Yeah.
that's accurate, but that's just for the drop from your plane shooting straight out across and then dropping down till you hit something.
Yeah.
He actually kind of goes into the end of the obstruction of how much the curve of the Earth should be between you and another object, how much it should obstruct what you're looking at. And I just want to make sure people understand that there is a difference. But he does a great job of going through the math and explaining that. Either way, what we're talking about here, it doesn't add up. You shouldn't be able to see it. So
Yeah. Yeah, the water's the easiest place to put it. I mean, I know every time you do a land thing like the salt flats, any sort of salt flats, they're going to say, well, yeah, that part of the ground is flat. They say, well, it's a flat part on top of a curved surface, and it's like you can't really argue with them because, like, well, okay,
no,
it
it could
could
be.
be it could be a flat
Yep.
part on top of a curved surface, but the water you can't do it because you can't curve water.
Yep. Yep.
You can people say, well, there's water tension. You look at a droplet of water, it's curved like a dome. I was going, yeah, but that's a tiny droplet of water. That
Yep.
doesn't really count. Anyway, Dale,
Well, real quick,
sorry, go ahead.
what you're not talking about is that type of mirage. I forgot the scientific word they're
Yeah.
saying. The image is supposed to be inverted upside down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a major, a
So
minor.
why isn't it upside down?
Yeah, the inverted, yeah. People have seen mirages. You don't see crystal clear mirages. You'll see, yeah, we all know we've grown up with television
No, I've
shows.
seen mirages out in the desert. They're upside down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You might be able to see, and the illusion of water. The whole palm tree.
Oh,
Oh
I've
wait,
seen it.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. I mean, you can look in the highway, and there's no water. The shimmering on the highway is not water. It's 100 degrees out. You
Mhm.
know that's not water. But yeah, when you're looking at buildings, and you know what I'm kind of been waiting for, and every week I'm thinking of more and more things, which is what we haven't seen from people, because everyone says, well, okay, here's Chicago, that you shouldn't be able to see it from this distance. Here's a lighthouse over here, and here's a building over here. Detroit, Toronto, all over the world, people are doing this. You shouldn't be able to see this island or this mountain range. You know what nobody's really done, and from the debunker standpoint, no one's come forward and says, hey, here's this lighthouse. It's 20 miles away. You shouldn't be able to see it. And you know what? You can't. I'm zooming in
They have.
with my what?
No, they have.
Somebody's actually zoomed in and said they can't see it, and it's
No,
actually
they can see it and they shouldn't.
no. I'm saying where's the people
Yeah.
that saying that they can't see it?
Or
You
it's
Oh,
know
the
what I mean?
opposition. Yeah.
They're coming out. Where's the debunker that says this lighthouse should not be visible from 20 miles or 30 miles? And they say, I'm on the beach. I'm zooming in with my a Coolpix 900 or whatever the thing is now. I'm zooming in, and you know what? I still can't see it. Therefore, it proves that there's a curve. No
no, that
one's
doesn't exist.
Yeah, nobody's done
Yeah.
that. Nobody's done the opposite.
Well, you
And
can't.
so people keep saying, "Oh, it's a mirage. It's this. It's that." It's like nobody's come back and said, "Here is a movie or a still shot or anything of something I shouldn't see, and I can't." It's not there because of the curvature. It's the left right stuff, and you guys probably have picked up on this already, which is the left right stuff doesn't really prove anything, meaning if you're looking for the horizon, the dip in the horizon from left to right, because you can't get up high enough. You shouldn't be. People have done 3D models on this. You can't get up high enough in an aircraft or even a weather balloon to see the left right drop off if it's there. And people saying, so the debunkers are coming back and saying, well, that doesn't prove a flat Earth if you go up in a weather balloon and say it's flat. I'm going, no, it doesn't. But what you do is you compare it to all the NASA photos and the mainstream media stuff like the Red Bull jump and the other things, and where it shows exaggerated curve. And it's like, okay, if we can't see a curve anywhere, then what's this?
Yep.
Does the weather balloon prove it's a flat Earth? No, it doesn't. But what it does do is it makes everything else look really, really bad.
Yep.
It makes it look ridiculous.
You can't use that for proof.
No, you can't use it
Yeah.
for proof, but at the same time, you can use it for discrediting the everything
Well, right.
that
Well,
you.
the GoPro cameras can't be used for proof.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
glad, by the way. I shouldn't say this, but I'm glad that GoPro is having problems right now, because they have been a pain in my side for the last year, because because it keeps confusing the issue, because people say, well, it's a fisheye lens, it's a GoPro lens. I was like, oh, look, because most people still don't get it. It's like, no, it's a peephole lens. A fisheye lens is a peephole lens. And that is because everybody's seen a peephole. And that is when you look through your door, your hallway is not curved, but the peephole allows you to see the curve in the hallway. It allows you to see more. And that's it. And all you have to, and I know that people put that up in weather balloons so you can get a better view, but the mainstream media and NASA loves to use it. So
Hmm.
anyway, Dale, sorry, I'm rambling sometimes. I get off on these jags. We got a couple minutes to break. When we come back, or you can start now if you want. Was there anything? What else really? Other than the air traffic control thing, was there anything else? I mean, once you saw Jonathan's uh, inter or listened to Jonathan's interview, would that kind of lead you on to other things? Did you start digging into it more and more?
Well, I started listening to it more and more, but
But at that
um,
point, you were already convinced.
well, I have a different opinion
We can
of
get
what's
into
going
that. We can get
on.
into that after the break. Are we talking about your the personal beliefs?
They're my personal beliefs. I'm not on here as a flat earther. I'm on here as a logical person observing physical facts.
Sure,
Yeah.
I'm a fact checker.
I got
Check,
you. I got you.
and I'm looking at the facts and they don't add up.
Got
That's
it.
where I'm at.
Got it. So you're in the same position as a lot of people, where it's like, yeah, you're not going to be holding up a sign on the street corners saying, the Earth is flat, the Earth is flat, but at the same time, you're looking at the globe model and saying, yeah, there's something really, really wrong here.
Oh, I've known there's something wrong my whole entire life. I personally thought they're just covering up all the UFOs flying around.
Ah, I got you.
That that
So
was my that was my initial reaction, which is I have a different. The Earth doesn't have for all this to work. In my personal opinion, the Earth doesn't have to be flat.
sure, I agree.
It just has to be much bigger than people think it is.
Sure.
I see. You're going down that road, and that is,
That's my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, that we could be a flat system on a much bigger object, sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Or something with such a something that's so big that we can't see the curve no matter how high we go, because it's just monstrous. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Well, we can go that direction. I don't think you're gonna get my personal opinion out of me on
That's right. Anyway, when we come back, last segment, more flight stuff. Dale, let's get into a few other things, shall we? Because you've got opinions, and I'd like to hear them. And that
Well,
is what, if you don't mind talking
yeah,
about.
I'll cover one opinion. Yeah, I've been all of this conspiracy theory stuff, and after I became an air traffic controller, I changed my MOS, which just means I kind of like whatever you change your job, okay?
Yeah.
And I went through a school again and got retrained, and went into a different sector of the military, highly classified kind of stuff. And one thing I will say, when I listen to all these conspiracy theory websites, a lot of them don't say anything. Okay, so that's your first tip off.
Yeah.
When they don't say anything, that's your first tip off to a disinformation agent. And there's a lot of them out there, I hate to say.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the news since 1995 because I knew what's really going on in the world. And every time I turn on the news, I'm like, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. And I just stopped watching the news. I haven't watched news since 1995.
Wow.
I'll hear about these, false flag operations, which I have direct knowledge of, and I'll watch them. I'm like, yeah, you guys finally figured it out. I wish the rest of the public would figure it out. But anyway, one thing I want to comment on is I love how people say above top secret.
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify. I don't know if I'm probably crossing the line, but I'll say it. There's unconfidential. There's no such thing as above unconfidential. It's called confidential.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as above confidential. It's called secret. There's no such thing as above secret. It's called top secret. You can have for example, when I was an air traffic controller, I had a security clearance and I had a flight line security clearance. So it's kind of like saying I had above secret flight line security clearance. No, I had a secret security clearance with a flight line, privilege. And you hear people say, I had a top secret security clearance level Q. Well, you just had top secret with access to level Q. Unfortunately, I actually know there is a level above top secret, and I'm not going to say the name, but it has a name.
Okay.
I've never once in my entire life heard anybody on any conspiracy website use the correct terminology for what is above top secret.
Really?
Really, never. It's a code word. I've never heard the code word.
All right.
And when I first learned about it, I laughed nonstop for 5 minutes. I just about fell out of my chair. Literally fell out of my chair. I couldn't believe the code word for what's above top secret.
Sort of like when they were doing the high altitude atomic testing back in the late 50s, and one of the packages was called Operation Fishbowl. Sort of, sort of like that.
Yeah, now you heard my laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when I heard that,
they use the real word, but it's a code word, but it tells you everything about the operation. It's hysterical.
Nice.
Hey, it kind of, I hate to go into the Illuminati thing, but the theory is that they have to put out in public knowledge in order for it to work.
Yeah.
It goes into the witchcraft thing. In order to cast a spell, you have to put it out there, and the people have to agree to it. If they let it pass, then boom, they're allowed to do it. And people don't understand supernatural stuff.
There's rules, and
there's rules.
Yeah, you have to put it out there. It can't be completely hidden.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, because what's the point? Yeah.
It not only it further enhances the spell.
Yeah, like anything. Yeah, the because you get the public to give it energy, to give it. I hate using the word manifest, but
it does manifest it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's this guy who has these little oh boy, I'm gonna go blank on this, but they basically measure the consciousness of the planet, monitors all the internet and everything, and when the consciousness is focusing on something, then boom, something will happen. Like 9/11, right before it happened. These this whatever keeps track of this stuff.
Oh, right. I know what you're talking
Random,
about.
generators, or
Yeah,
yeah,
random.
Yeah. There was a name
Track.
for it, though.
yeah.
There was a name for this. It's a program. I'm drawing a blank too because I haven't heard it in a couple of years.
Nano, it's a generator. Jonathan said it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's another name for it.
Yeah, I think there is. There's another. Yeah,
Web, like a web bot or something like that.
Something like, yeah, like WebBoss. Something
yeah.
like, yeah.
Anyway,
And
wow.
then we also had, there's been instances where everybody got together and prayed, and crime rate went down.
I could see that.
So there's proof that the consciousness of everybody affects the general reality.
Oh yeah, I have no
Yeah.
doubt. I've
Yeah.
seen it. I saw it back in when I was in college, a long time ago, where there was a professor that showed this on a limited stance. He goes, "Okay, I'm going to take two people, get them out of the room. Okay, first person when they walk in, think nothing but happy thoughts. Because it was like one of those stadium classroom
Right.
settings. Just think nothing but happy, wonderful thoughts about this person, and he's going to walk all the way down to me. And then the second person, you're going to think nothing but horrible, hateful thoughts. You want to murder this person. And he's going to, he or she is going to walk down. And then I'm going to ask him a question. How did you feel when you walked down? And it was exactly what they thought. It was like, wow, I felt really great walking down here. The other person's like, wow, it was horrible. It's like something going on here. I felt, really, like I was in trouble. And yeah. So,
Huh.
expand that to a bigger sense. And yeah, you bet we can create things.
Yeah, like when someone walks in the room, they're really negative. Everybody can feel the vibration,
Yeah.
Yep.
and it expands on a global level, and that's how these folks operate.
Yeah. Hey, since I don't want to miss out on any questions because Jonathan, did you still have some more questions for Dale because we're in our last segment?
Yeah, I want to keep going with this, though. This is good. You keep running with that.
Okay. I didn't know how much further I was going to go with that, other than
Well,
what he was saying.
yeah,
You mean the code word that he's not going to say, and the fact
that
that
he, that he's trying to ignore. Yeah.
yeah the that he had somebody that was trying to keep an eye on the world consciousness. Oh well, that's where I was. I do have something to add to this, and that is because this is a question for both of you, but Dale specifically, which is because you don't believe because you know that anything in the mainstream media has an ulterior motive. Do
Hmm.
you think and I thought about this, I had a lot of people contact me about this, and that is once the flat earth thing hit mainstream media, which it did in a big way. I mean, it hit all of them at the same time, with the whole Neil deGrasse Tyson going on primetime television and addressing the flat earth, against a Grammy nominated rapper they're talking about this. It's like, okay, you know full well they're only talking about this because they're allowed to be talking about this.
Hmm.
So
Right.
does it feel like a setup for something else? Like that this whole
Absolutely.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, the 100th monkey scenario where it's like, okay, if enough people figure this, let's get this in their train of thought, does that sort of change the reality? And all of a sudden we get that tipping point where we flip over and it's like, okay, the world isn't necessarily a globe anymore. It's something else. Do you think
Yeah.
that's where we're going?
Boy, I can't really comment on this, but it has to do with all the explosion sounds we're hearing around the planet, or
That would
whatever.
make sense. And Jonathan, you sound like you're somewhat conspiracy based. You know what the loud booming and
Oh
we,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it
Well,
sounds
let me touch on that real quick.
yeah
I knew a buddy of mine who worked at a Boeing aircraft, and he is the rivet and the bolt guy. And they had to stress test these bolts, and they would, had a machine that would pull it apart till it broke, and when it broke, it sounded like a stick of dynamite going off.
yeah
Now, people don't think of a bolt as a stick of dynamite going off. Well, we all know there's underground bases, okay, and there's
yeah
tunnels and everything. That's public domain.
yeah
Well, what if they have to come to the surface? They don't want some Joe Smuck coming along and discovering one of the hatch holes and opening it up.
yeah.
So these things are tightly bolted down, and when they release them, the bolts are popped, and boom, you have an explosion.
Yeah. And you think to that degree? Well, yeah, but some of these sounds sound like when I was listening to them, and I granted, some are probably fake and some aren't, but that
Oh, the
sound.
sound, that's different. The sounds are different than the
Oh, you're
explosion.
talking about the popping.
I'm talking about the explosions specifically.
Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, I could see that. I can see.
But in regards to the sounds, and when I was in the Navy, we had to work in the galley in boot camp, and we had this big rotisserie, and when it would go around because it was old, it literally sounded like whales howling, and then occasionally it sounded exactly like the sounds that are heard around the Earth.
Yeah.
So it's
But bigger.
but bigger.
Yeah, but bigger.
Yeah.
That's when I was
So,
listening.
so let's say you're popping something from the earth and it's coming up and it's using mechanical stuff. And then,
Exactly.
you know
Exactly.
where I'm going with that? I don't want to go in.
No, I hear
I
you.
already said too much.
I know it's all right. I hear you. No, I'll go down that road, which is I've always said since I've been looking at this thing that the world seems to be a giant machine.
Oh yeah.
That it's a giant mechanical
Oh my
process, and I'm not.
gosh, real estate moves up and down, left and right. It's camouflage.
Yeah,
Yeah. Police are in on it. The military. It's a huge military operation.
when I hear the sounds, especially when I listen to, I'm a big sound guy. I love listening to sounds. I was a big sound effects guy for years, back in the software development days, and when I listen to this stuff, I was going, it sounds like things I've sort of heard before, but much, much bigger. It's like you're listening to like the inside of an industrial factory, but this industrial factory is like for giants or something. It's really, really like a it's like sometimes it's like listening to a set of doors open or shut, and they're ancient and rusty, but you're listening to them. It's going something like that must be thousands and thousands of feet high, or part of a mechanism
No,
that's
it's just below the earth bouncing off.
well, there's that too.
Huh.
Anyway,
I know.
I know. So what, uh, Jonathan? Seriously, do you have because we don't have much time left? Do you have like at 15 less than 12 minutes? What other little miscellaneous things did you have, or did you?
Oh, well, I was gonna ask a question. I don't know if Dale can answer this or not, but when you were looking on your radar scope, I'm just curious as a pilot, how far out, and I'm gonna use the ocean since I know you were near the ocean as a good flat plane to work with. How low could an aircraft go approximately, if you can tell me, and how far out before you would lose them? What's kind of the ratio of height to distance before that radar would pick them up on the low end, not up high?
Classified.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That thanks.
But
That's cool.
Mark, if I may plug my physics real quick.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead. You got time.
Okay, so we're hiding a lot more than the flat Earth here. Basically, everything. I'm going. People don't know this. I have a physics background. Everything that you can see and experience in life can be explained by the four forces of the universe. There's a strong nuclear force, a weak nuclear force, electromagnetic, and gravity.
Yep.
And string theory, Albert Einstein can never unify these four forces.
Mm-hmm.
And when he died, the proteges come along and go, well, he's working with a limited four-dimensional universe. Let's expand it out to the fifth, the sixth. At the sixth, we discovered this harmonic frequency. And then we went out to the tenth dimension. We found an origin point. And we're like, well, why stop there? And we went out, and at the 26th dimension, there was another origin point. I'm trying to be quick here.
No, you got time. Go ahead.
And then we went out to infinity. So the decision with the string theory, which later became supersymmetry, is the sixth dimension is a harmonic frequency. There's the 10th dimension and the 26th dimension that have origin points. We're like, we don't know which. We had problems with like the tachyons and all these kind of problems. And I sent my my research to the world's most renowned physicists, and I sent you my paper, Mark. You're welcome to post on your website. People can read it. It's copyright 1999 before M theory. So from my paper, I gave permission. I'm horrible at math. I gave permission for people to basically steal my work and develop the theory. And then, after everybody got my paper, I'm sitting there reading the next book, and all of a sudden M theory, and I'm reading it, and it's like verbatim my paper. And I'm like, oh my God, these idiots. They took my paper and they created this imaginary 11th dimension that exists outside the 10 dimensions, and they say the origin point exists outside the physical universe, which is my theory, dead on.
Okay.
And they're saying this is the 11th dimension. Okay, well, you can say there's a dome, whatever, and this and that, but the point is, even when you go out to the grandiose scale of the universe, even physicists agree that there are boundaries and barriers, and there's something that exists outside of the physical universe. So I don't care if you want to microscope it down to Earth, or even if you take it to the physical universe. Even our scientists say that there is something outside of us. So there's a dome to the universe, there's a dome to the Earth. I don't care what you say. There's a dome.
Yeah.
Yep,
Rob,
good point.
Rob Skiba, and feel free to interrupt me anytime. We've still got 9 minutes, almost 10 minutes. And that is, Rob Skiba was kind of talking about that in some of his videos, where he was saying, he's going, look, from everything I've read, and granted, he was using biblical stuff, was saying that, look, it appears like that we're a dome inside a big box.
Right.
And that, like you were saying, even mainstream science will say, look, there's limits to this. And that, but Rob Skiba was saying, well, look, there's an edge. It's like, because
There is.
that we're inside some sort of container, which again makes sense to me, because why wouldn't there be? The infinite
Hmm.
doesn't nobody can ever process the infinite. And I know it's easy for us. It's like, well, just trying to deal with it. You're trying to resolve the infinite by creating a box. It's like, well, why wouldn't we? It's but yeah. So I'm sorry, just for the people that don't know, can you expand a little more on the origin point? The
Yeah, so it basically, people know about the double slit experiment, yada yada.
yeah,
Particles sometimes act as a wave. And I'm trying to be brief here.
yeah,
Sometimes act as a wave. Sometimes there's an observer and act.
the tree falling in the
So
forest argument. Yeah,
basically, we have two fields of physics. There's general relativity, everything large; quantum physics, everything that's small. If you take the equations, like let's say 1 + 1 = 2 in quantum physics, everything's cool. But you take the same 1 + 1 = 2 in general relativity and equals 2, 6, 8, -10. And all the equations completely fall apart. And all the equations in general relativity, you apply them to quantum physics, they completely fall apart. And everyone is scratching their heads going, what the hell is going on? And they haven't been able to figure out how to unify them. What the answer is, there is a field of general relativity, there is a field of quantum physics, and I discovered the third field of physics, which I just will call the invisible.
mhm.
Ironically, my paper is called Harmony, and M sits right over the M theory, right over the center symbol of the invisible universe. And I sent my paper to all the renowned physicists and theoretical mathematicians in the world, and I just find it a coincidence that's called M theory, which sits right above my theory. It's like directly out of my paper. It's ironic, and once you identify this third field of physics, it unifies the sixth dimension harmonic frequency. It unifies everything, and it goes according to the Revelation. It's all Bible verse.
Okay.
I take the Book of Revelation. I quote the Bible. I quote physics. Left, right. Here's physics. Here's the Bible. Here's physics. Here's the Bible. I nickname my paper Physics of the Bible.
Yeah.
I'll make it available for free to anybody who wants to read it.
Cool. Wow, that's great. So the paper you sent to me, because people aren't going to email you directly, at least not yet. If anyone's listening, and you want a copy, and I'm sorry, the title of the paper is called, because I had no.
Well, I originally called it the Throne of God because that's the Book of Revelation when he's taken up to the throne of God.
That's what the physics paper is called, the Throne of God.
Yeah,
Wow,
Interesting.
that's
I've
bold.
never heard of. Yeah.
and did you mention? I don't think I graduated from Vanguard University, magna cum laude. I
Wow,
was lay minister for 10 years. I'm well versed in the Bible.
right on. Right, so you've been following a little bit of maybe Rob Skiba, maybe Tiger Dan, those guys, some of the people that are kind of doing the flat Earth stuff, a little bit.
Yeah, and my paper was copywritten in 1999. It's in the Library of Congress. It's public knowledge, and this is before M3 ever came out.
Nice. Nice. Okay,
Wow.
so what you sent to me that I'm going to be sending to people if they email me at msargent23@comcast.net. And if you forgot to write that down, it's at the end of every video I ever have is my email address. I'm going to be sending them M theory, or is that what it's called? What I'm sending them?
Well, the title's called the Throne of God.
Title is called The Throne of God, but it actually goes into M theory.
Well, this is before M3 came out.
Oh wow. All right.
Like I said, M3 came from my paper.
This is pretty deep stuff, man.
It's huge.
Wow.
I basically prove I unify the four forces.
Oof. All right.
Huh.
That's great. I'm
From a biblical perspective.
From a biblical perspective, all Bible verse.
Yeah, you need to talk to Rob. Skiba.
Yeah, you need to talk to Steve about this, or controversy.
Yeah, and the thing is, I unfortunately sent my work out to mainstream, but if I can get a hold of a theoretical mathematician or a theoretical, physicist,
Little.
It's so easy to prove the theory of everything. It's ridiculous.
Unfortunately, theoretical physicists are tough to find. They're
Oh, they're very hard to find.
yeah,
Yeah.
thin on the ground, and as of late, they've been kind of running from us or anyone that's even related to us. I can't get most university professors that have already been exchanging emails with each other, and it's like, do not talk to these people. It's like, all right, that's fine. You can avoid us, you can run, but you can't hide. The
Well, you if you look at the geometric structure, my paper has the geometric structure. The structure. Sorry, it's
That's
late
okay.
here. Of the universe, and it's basically a computer. Like when they came out with dark matter and dark energy, I went to my paper and I did
Yeah,
the calculations. Like, well, there it is. They either my paper is accurate or they're pulling it off my paper.
right on.
And then when they come out with a new discovery, I go right back to the paper. It's like a computer, seriously.
Cool.
And I look at the structure and I do the equations, I do the calculations, and boom, there it is.
Yeah.
It's like every scientific discovery goes right back to my paper.
You really need to be on either Rob Skiba's show or Celebrate Truth or Controversy 7. Unfortunately, Tiger Dan not going to be able to help you because he's off doing his own thing. But yeah, that'd be really great.
Yeah, email that. Yeah, email me the names later.
I'm going to. Well, what I'll do is because he's actually on Skype as well. I'm gonna throw you the contact info as soon as we're done here, and then you can.
But they're hiding the third field of physics. Is what they're doing
Wow.
because it explains everything.
Wow. And that makes sense because everyone thinks, well, they've only been hiding physical things. And the truth is, well, no, they'd hide anything that would be disruptive to this, and that includes entire concepts.
Well, because anything like electricity takes a certain amount of energy to input for the energy output, and
Yeah.
if you discover something that creates a greater output than electricity than what goes into it,
Yeah.
it's immediately classified secret or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So they're hiding energy.
Oh yeah, that, and I mean everybody knows that because we thought of this back in the 60s, like we should have flying cars by now. We should have, the everything that we've thought we've had, the future that everyone envisioned 50, 60 years ago. That hasn't happened.
Well, anti-gravity has been discovered on an unclassified level.
Well, yeah, yeah, but can you do it with a powers? Can you use it to control craft? That's the big thing, cheap.
Well, I've seen it. Yes.
Yeah, well, cheaply. You know what I mean? Where
No, I've seen it. You can.
I believe you. I absolutely believe you. I have no doubt that the unified field engine has been out. Well, I don't want to get into the whole Bob Lazar thing and all.
No, but you're right on.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Bob Lazar, exactly.
but they can't. But in the model that I came up with, it was. Well, I'm sorry, not that I came up with. I'm sorry. The model that I enhanced was that you couldn't allow something like that, a technology like that, out because it changes too many things and it allows people to kind of figure out where we are.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, I mean, they've been suppressing it so long, and we've only got a couple minutes left. But
yeah, it destroys the oil industry, the electricity industry.
Oh, yeah.
It destroys everything.
yeah, Tesla, who knows? Tesla probably had the
Albert Einstein had they say IQ of 164. I'm sorry, that's not a genius. A genius IQ is 200. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
There's that show. It's like, I forgot the name of the show. There were a bunch of geniuses that go around and solve stuff.
Oh yeah, that crap. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Main media saying Albert Einstein had an IQ of 164 and he's a genius. Just Google it. The Genius Club starts at 200. I have a measurable IQ of 197.
Holy smokes! That's way up there, man.
Yeah, I can prove it. My day-to-day operational IQ is 174. I have actually 2 measurable IQs.
Wow. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm gonna grab your paper because you were sending me so much stuff didn't even have a chance to read it all.
Well, I hope you understand it because there's only 500 people in existence that can even comprehend it.
Right on. I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Any parting shots before we are out of here for the night? Any?
Yeah, my last comment. Awesome discussion. I'm glad we got to talk to Dale and all that. I hope whether it's flat or round or whatever it turns out to be, I think it's a great way for people to open up and seek truth and use their common sense, because truth is simple. Just use your eyes and see what's around you.
Excellent. Really cool. Dale, any parting shots? Anything that you recommend that people look at? Other than the paper that I will email out to people that ask at msargent23@comcast.net.
Well, the paper is a little bit of a segue off the that topic, but
Okay.
I'm here as a subject matter expert. Pretty much discussion closed. I can see aircraft 350 miles away that are supposed to be at 81,000 feet.
Wow.
Impossible.
Got it. Right on.
I mean, hard fact, case closed.
Cool. Cool. Well, I'd like to thank Dale very much for coming on the show and sharing. Also, like to thank Jonathan from Walter Aviation. If you're in Iowa and not doing much, because apparently there's not much to do in Iowa, hey, go out and have an aerobatic flight with Jonathan.
You'll love it.
That'd
You'll
be,
love
that'd be fun. And
it.
don't eat a big breakfast before you do it.
Please don't.
No, that would be bad. And next week we're probably going to do mailbag, I think, because this show has now put me way behind in the mailbag. So until next time, you guys stay flat.